Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Sarah Silverman's new stand-up comedy special, Someone You Love, premieres tomorrow night on HBO, also streaming on Max. We spoke in 2017 when she performed live at the MGM National Harbor near Washington, D.C. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. This is an honor.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
They have an awesome new venue out there at National Harbor. It's a casino. Should our listeners get boozed up on the free casino booze before they see you and lose all their money first or after they see you?
Do it after. I don't like drunk people. They scare me. I have an actual phobia of drunk people. I'm the kind of semi-famous person where people feel like they know me, and that's nice, but when they're drunk, then they feel like they can, grab me. I'm just a little lady.
What can we expect from the show? I mean, you're going to be in D.C., so obviously that opens up a ton of political jokes.
Yeah, let's see, what can you expect? I don't know what I can say on this show, but it's, it's not for children, and it's sometimes explicit, but I talk a lot about family, but that's explicit too.
Sometimes the most explicit. Take us how you got into comedy in the first place. So you were born in Bedford, New Hampshire. Who did you like growing up? Which comics did you sort of enjoy as a youngin'?
I worshipped Steve Martin.
Of course.
I loved him so much. And then, of course, Woody Allen. My mom had a double album of Woody Allen, and we listened to that all the time. I loved Albert Brooks. All the people I still really admire. But Martin Short, I like intellectual stuff, and I like regressively silly stuff. And I find that they combine often.
Absolutely. Did you ever have chance meetings where you actually got to meet some of these heroes later in life?
Yeah, I met Steve Martin and Martin Short, and I adore both of them.
That's so awesome.
And Albert Brooks.
Yeah, Albert.
Oh my God, what a life.
Albert Brooks is so effing
My
funny.
childhood me knew what my adulthood me would be. I would just...
All right, well, so you grew up, loving all those guys and gals, and then how did you actually get into stand-up around, I think it was 92?
Oh, the first time I did stand-up, I was 17 in Boston, because that was kind of like the closest city where I was lived in New Hampshire, actually, southern New Hampshire.
Gotcha.
And then I finished high school, and then I moved to New York. And I started, working, passing out flyers for a club in New York called the Boston Comedy Club, and they'd give me stage time. And it just slowly, I started passing at the clubs. And, 93, I quit college after my first year. My dad said, if you quit, I'll pay the next 3 years as if it's your sophomore, junior, senior year of your rent. That's like a great deal, just so expensive. So
you had a 4-year deal regardless, whether it was college or not. It was a 4-year deal with Dad.
Yeah, but I mean, it is, he knew what I was doing. I didn't need a diploma,
Sure.
So instead of paying for college, he paid my, $350 a month rent and utilities.
Nice.
And by the time I would have graduated, I was writing for Saturday Night Live. But addendum, I was fired a year later. But I kept, I from then on, I supported myself. So it worked out well. And I still got an education because I just stole classes from NYU,
You just stole them and
they're all they're all big lectures, and I just went.
And now you're giving lectures, except they're funny lectures.
Yeah.
Awesome. You mentioned SNL and how it was sort of a brief, you said about a year. I think I saw was it Bob Odenkirk or someone saying about you leaving the show and said it's because you had your own little voice and, sometimes it doesn't always fit. But what's your take?
That's very generous of Bob. But I would say, I wasn't, I looked back on it. I kept all the sketches I wrote, and I read them, and they're not funny. I think it might have had something to do with that. I think I wasn't me yet, I was very young, and it was impressive that I got hired, and I was very good at punching up. I don't think anyone who remembers me will deny that. That was my best kind of quality, was I was able I was really good on the Thursday nights when we punched up all the scripts. But, I was young and I didn't have a whole lot to contribute at that point.
So when you're saying punching up, you mean sketches that were already written, you were really good at jumping in there and making them much better. Do you remember which ones you punched up? Any of the famous ones we know?
I'm sure, but hundreds and hundreds. I mean, probably many. I guess not hundreds, but whatever, 20 shows worth of maybe just,
Right. Did any of yours finally make the air?
No.
None?
Some that I co-wrote, some that I helped write, some that I co-wrote. Lots of individual jokes made it into sketches, and I would get jokes on Update a lot. But no, my sketches weren't funny.
Do you remember any of the ones that you thought were funny at the time, and now you look back and you're like...
They were like high concept. Phil Hartman was very generous, and he had seen me do stand-up, and he said, write something for you and I to do together. No, you and me would be the correct. Okay, sorry, my mom is still in my head.
Right.
And I wrote this thing about how we were houseflies, and because houseflies only live 24 hours, so he was like at the end of his life, and I was young, and he was like giving me advice as we sat on the wall watching a dog go to the bathroom in the house. And but I don't remember like the jokes, but it was very like, I think it was written in the frame of like a masterpiece theater. I don't know.
Right.
Very weird kind of stuff, like not bright, high concept, young kids stuff. There's probably something there, but yeah.
Absolutely. Well, all the years later, you ended up getting the last laugh. You got your own show in '07, Sarah Silverman program on Comedy Central. But I'm sure when you let go of SNL, you're just like bummed for a while. So how do you pick yourself back up and build a successful stand-up career to the point where you get your own freaking show?
Oh, it was a long road. I got fired from Saturday Night Live, so I felt like, worthless. And then I moved to LA and I immediately booked a sitcom, and the day before we shot it, I got fired from that. And so that gave me a real complex that I was going to just always be fired. And so even when I was hired for things, I was constantly waiting to be fired from them, but I didn't actually. And then I was able to hold on to jobs for a while, and I did all sorts of different jobs on shows, and I did like a Star Trek Voyager, and I did Seinfeld, and then I had a recurring role on Larry Sanders, and I was able to, once I met Gary Shandling, he was a real mentor to me and huge in my life, and I just stand up was always there for me. It was always something I could hone and develop, and I love it. It's like it's who I am. I always say it's like kind of like being gay. Like you're born that way, and if you either figure out you're a stand-up or you just think that something's wrong with you your whole life.
Right. I'm glad you found out who you really were. Great. Well, before we move on, you mentioned Seinfeld there. You were the Jimmy Legs. You were a girlfriend with the Jimmy Legs, right?
Oh my, yes.
You didn't think I would know that. Oh, dude.
I know you're a movie I know you know movies, but I didn't know you knew sitcoms.
Oh, absolutely. It's everything. No, memories of that real quick. What was it like working with him and Julie Louis-Dreyfus, all those people? That must have been nuts.
It was great. It was, I think that was like the most excited I ever have been from getting like a job from an audition. Like I just couldn't believe it because Seinfeld was already like an institution, and I was actually Kramer's girlfriend, and it was really cool. It was, I remember Jerry said I looked too young. I was so young, and I looked even younger, and so they gave me like older woman hair and like soft curls, and I don't know how that works. Now I warrant older woman hair, but I still just wake up and put a ponytail on my head and don't think about it.
That's so funny. What memories of Sarah Silverman program though? Because it was a funny show, man. What was like the biggest joy of doing that, and also sort of the biggest challenge of it too?
Oh, the Sarah Silverman program we're all very close friends. Everyone who worked on it, we were either already best friends or we became best friends. But it was a group where whenever we see each other now, we're like, oh no, is that going to be the happiest time of our lives? And did it already happen? But it was pure joy. And it just felt like being home. And my sister played my sister. My older sister played my younger sister. And just to be able to be together every single day was pure joy.
Yeah, especially getting to swap the older-younger dynamic with the
When
sis.
I told her she was playing my younger sister, she was like, thank you. But everybody thinks she's younger than me, so well.
It was the older woman hair, I think. That's what did it. It flipped it.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, all right. See, bringing it back. The old callback. That's a great one.
The old callback.
You can't go wrong with the old callback. I'm trying to think what else. You mentioned Seinfeld. Oh, yeah. You started landing some movie roles, too, like School of Rock, Something About Mary. Real quick memories of those.
Oh, my gosh. Something About Mary was, I think, my first movie that, went into movie theaters. That was really fun. Farrelly Brothers are hilarious, and it was really good. School of Rock was so funny. It's funny when you play just like the bitchy girlfriend. Like, it was a little soul-killing, but when I watched the movie, it's so good. And Jack is like, it's exactly him. That's who he is. He's so special. But it was funny because, when you're shooting it, I'm making people laugh and being me, and then you watch the movie and I'm just like this angry bitch, character, and you go, oh, a little soul killing, but the movie is so good, and I was so happy to be a part of it. It's hard to shake off the bitchy girlfriend role, the first girlfriend before the guy realizes what love can be. That's always what the Jewish girls get,
We love to hit you in that. You did your job well. That's awesome.
Thank you.
One other little thing before we bring it back to MGM National Harbor, I have to ask you, I'm blanking Matt Damon. That was a cultural phenomenon. You were hilarious.
Yeah.
How did that, when you get that pitch to you, do you just jump at it? Because you don't really shy away from things, but there's take me into the formation of that.
At the time, Jimmy was we were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, and he was having a birthday show where he didn't want to know what any of the content was. He wanted it to be all a birthday present to him, the guests, everything, all the stuff he loved. And he had been ending the show with "Sorry, Matt Damon, we ran out of time," which I think he still does, know.
Every show.
And at the time, it was, now it's tradition and it has a whole new meaning, but at the time it was because, his show was new, and, it was like the second guest on the show would be like the man with the longest arm hair, it was hard. So it was funny to say, oh, to the biggest movie star alive, sorry, we didn't get you on the show.
Right.
So, and Matt had come on and done some things on the show. And so, a couple of the writers, Tony Barbieri and cousin Sal, had come up with this idea that I do a video and it ends up that I'm bleeping Matt Damon. And then it turned into a song, and then we all wrote the song. I was on tour, and I went through Miami where Matt was living at the time. And the writers came down, and the director, Wayne McClammy. And the night before, we just wrote the song and recorded it. And then the next morning, Matt came in, learned the song, recorded it in the closet of a hotel. And then that hotel let us shoot just all around the hotel. And we had 3 hours with Matt. He had a hard out at 11 a.m. or noon or something because he's such a great guy, and it was his daughter's Halloween pageant, and he wasn't going to be late for it. And he did the whole thing. It was amazing. He was so awesome. And then we never aired it. It just went on the shelf for a long time because the writer's strike happened. And then we pulled it out after the writer's strike. It was the 5-year anniversary of the show, so we did it for that. And it was still a surprise. He had no idea what it was. And I remember we were brushing our teeth in his dressing room, and Jimmy's like, I can't wait to see what you did. Everyone's saying I'm going to love it. And I go, I didn't know it would be. I just said, lower your expectations. It's just a funny video. I didn't want him to be disappointed because he seemed to be all excited about it, but he loved it. And it was really exciting. And I think it was just kind of early enough in the days of the internet.
Yeah, one of those first viral videos. One of the first, yeah.
But it was good. It was really good. I saw it recently and I was like, oh, that was so good.
Oh, it holds up. Oh, that's awesome.
It does. It kind of holds up.
We really appreciate you taking the time. I think I have an interview with the guy with the longest arm hair, or whatever you just said, coming up after you, so we got to let you go. But real quick, in closing, why should we come out? What's the final sell?
All here's the final sell. I mean, come out if you think I'm your cup of tea. I don't know. Don't come if I'm not your thing. But, it will be fun, I think. My Auntie Martha is coming, and she doesn't go to anything.
So, yeah, there you go. Awesome.
So just know that Auntie Martha will be in the audience, and so you might want to be there.
All right. We'll come just for Auntie Martha.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sarah Silverman on WTOP. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jason. All right, cool.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.